Emotional intelligence. Practical tips to boost your EQ. Written by Adrian Tweely. Narrated by Weston Grit. Introduction. Emotional intelligence is a term that refers to the ability an individual possesses when it comes to perceiving, evaluating, as well as controlling their emotions. It tends to be innate, meaning every individual is born with it. Through studies, it is thought that with certain tips on enhancing your mind power, an individual can master the art of learning and also strengthening their emotional intelligence. There are several things that constitute the broad spectrum of emotional intelligence. When you set out to find what it is, there are a few things that you will discover. Emotional intelligence can be used for a number of things. Mastering it can better so many facets of our individual life. When you have mastery of it, one tends to become more self-aware. This self-awareness also translates into better self-management. The key to becoming more connected with your emotions is to ensure that whatever you are feeling, you name it appropriately. This means, if you are angry, do not mistake it for sadness. Accurately identifying the emotion. You should then go ahead to attribute that particular emotion with the source that caused it. This is to ensure that you do not take out your emotions on the wrong sources. The next thing would be to curb yourself from acting out because of your emotions. This helps you in fostering emotional maturity. It also enables you to identify both your strengths and your weaknesses when it comes to your emotional intelligence. Another thing that you would have to keep in mind when you are trying to understand what emotional intelligence is would be figuring out what causes emotions in the first place. Understanding all the psychological factors that come into play when your emotions are being formed are one way of enabling yourself to learn how to exploit those very emotions to work towards your personal development. Managing your emotions as well as your behavior in a better manner is also a key in learning about emotional intelligence. This will involve improving how you self-regulate yourself. You would also have to learn how to manage your frustrations in a smarter way, as this would be one of the ways emotional intelligence would help you to reach your goals you have set. Interacting better with people also helps an individual in enhancing their emotional intelligence. The stronger it is, the easier you find relating to other people. It not only makes an individual more empathetic, but you also start identifying better with people. One way you can try and improve it when it comes to interactions with other people is by trying to become a better listener. This enables you to connect with the emotions that you are feeling, and in turn, you are better equipped at reacting to them in the appropriate manner. Having a better understanding of what is emotional intelligence will have an overall positive effect on your life. 1. What is emotional intelligence? Everyone knows, at least vaguely, about general intelligence, or IQ. But what about emotional intelligence, or EI? For the vast majority of us, emotional intelligence is more important to our lives than IQ. Your EI, or emotional intelligence, is the level of your ability to understand other people, what motivates them, and how to work cooperatively with them. Today, our success among our peers and in our careers depends on our ability to interpret the signals from the people around us and to react appropriately. Emotional intelligence, or EI, is the ability to assess, understand, and control emotions. A person with a high level of emotional intelligence practices self awareness and is conscientious of the direct effect feelings have on behavior. Emotional intelligence can be broken into 5 main categories that every individual should attempt to master. Self-awareness. Developing EI requires that an individual be self-aware. Self-awareness is learning to monitor thoughts, beliefs, motives, and actions. It involves actively reflecting on your character, which in turn informs a person of who they are. Understanding your character means that you know what you believe in and what you are willing to fight for. You are able to identify circumstances that will bring you joy and those that will cause distress. You are able to articulate the occurrence of various emotions, including, but not limited to, sadness, confusion, happiness, and excitement. Also, you are able to recognize behaviors that are typical of your personality. Before a person can read another person's emotions, they should be able to read their own. Self-awareness requires an individual to be aware of his or her own emotions and be able to manage them. For example, a self-aware individual who finds himself fidgeting may recognize that they are nervous and begin to take steps to calm himself down. This self-awareness also encompasses self-confidence, which is always helpful when negotiating your way through interpersonal communication. Self-regulation. While no one will have complete control over their emotions that they experience, some can control how long these emotions last. Self-regulation is the ability to alleviate negative emotions such as anger or anxiety. The individual is able to take a breath and review his or her situation in a more positive light. People who have mastered self-regulation are able to control any negative impulses, have personal standards of integrity, take responsibility for their actions, and are able to adapt to new situations. Motivation. An emotionally intelligent individual will have personal goals and be able to recognize that others also have their own goals. They achieve any of these. A person needs to be motivated to improve himself, ready to take advantage of opportunities, and be optimistic. A person with a high emotional intelligence will be able to balance his own goals with the goals of organizations that he is involved with. This can include the workplace, volunteer organizations, and even friend circles. Empathy. This is the ability to discern the feelings or motivations behind another person's signals. This will also determine which signals you need to send them in return. An empathetic person will be able to anticipate another's needs, be able to bolster the abilities of their coworkers, read a person or group's emotional state, and understand the power dynamic in relationships or groups. Social skills. A well-developed set of interpersonal skills is important to success in both personal relationships and career. People with good social skills are able to persuade others, send clear messages, guide others, manage change, resolve disagreements, and build bonds with others. Emotionally intelligent people have good social skills and are excellent at building and maintaining relationships. When you are highly emotionally intelligent, you no longer focus on your own success first, and you always have others' best interests in mind. You always promote an environment where people cooperate with each other instead of compete with one another, and you always help others develop and grow. Of course, not everyone will have an inherently high EQ. The aspects and skills that make up a high emotional intelligence, however, can be learned. Every person can learn to recognize and regulate their emotions, and to react appropriately in group dynamics. The process often requires not only interaction with others, but self-reflection. As you learn how to read yourself and control your own negative emotions, you will naturally become better at reading the people around you and responding to their signals, and navigating the waters of any social situation. 2. The importance of emotional intelligence. Many people are not completely aware of how important emotional intelligence is in their lives. We attempt to read many books and articles about this matter just for the knowledge, but we ignore the fact that if we apply emotional intelligence in our daily life and work, it could lead us to somewhere else that we never expected. The key skills of emotional intelligence could be learned by anyone, at any time. Imagine if you are able to overcome, control, and get over your daily life stress with just being emotionally aware of everything that goes right there around you. Emotional intelligence could be summarized in the ability to express your emotions and to control them at the same time, understand and interpret to others' feelings. There are 4 easy steps that can lead you to emotional intelligence you always wished you have. The first one is sensing the emotions. You should concentrate and accurately perceive the message someone tries to tell you. This actually involves not only understanding the person's intended words, but also watching the nonverbal signs, body language, and facial expressions. The second one is reasoning with emotions. We should use our emotions to promote thinking. Emotions help in prioritizing what we pay attention and react to. This means that emotions play a very big part in guiding our minds to believing things that might or might not happen. We naturally react to things that attract our minds. The third one is understanding emotions. Emotions may carry whole different meanings at many times. Some people can express their anger in an indirect way. This can actually be very obvious in the example of the angry boss. He can scream, shout, and give you a very hard time just because he has an issue related to your work, or he experienced a bad morning with his wife. We should never get confused in understanding the reasons behind people's reactions, and that's why training yourself to have emotional intelligence can help you in this matter. The fourth and last one is managing emotions. The ability to manage your emotions. Emotions are valuable and offer a bounty of benefits. Once we're able to process and cope with them effectively, we can then learn a lot about ourselves and our needs. If you feel something, let it out. Do not engage yourself in another action, hoping you can distract your feelings. This can lead you to many problems. Managing and controlling your emotions and feelings are very important. It is a step towards reaching the emotional intelligence of knowing how to perfectly understand people around you with the least words and actions they make. Some people see emotional intelligence as an inborn characteristic, and others say it could be learned and strengthened. As for me, I can definitely say that it can easily be learned and practiced. You may face some difficulties at first, but with trying many times, it will at the end easily work. Despite the fact that emotional intelligence lacks the volume of quantitative empirical cognitive research that IQ has, the research in the field of cognitive learning has suggested that emotional intelligence is a key fundamental aspect of learning. According to a report, the level of success that a student has learning new material boils down to their individual levels of confidence, self-control, curiosity, their ability to communicate, their cooperativeness, their elatedness, and their intentionality. All these traits are aspects of emotional intelligence. More recently, social scientists began to uncover the relationship of emotional intelligence to other organizational psychologies, such as leadership, group performance, individual performance, interpersonal exchange, performance evaluations, and change management. Humans are social beings, and as such, our level of success when dealing with people is intimately linked with our level of emotional intelligence. Improving your level of emotional intelligence. Researchers and scientists see the intelligence quotient, also known as IQ, as fixed, meaning that it does not change throughout one's lifetime. EI differs greatly from IQ, in that EI can be improved through a combination of life experience, maturity, conscious thought, and perseverance. You can improve your level of emotional intelligence by doing the following. 1. Think back to the most recent time you can think of when you had hurt somebody's feelings, and analyze what your reactions were at the time, and analyze what you said that inflicted emotional pain on the other person. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and empathize with them and their feelings as you said these words. In this drill, you will effectively increase your understanding of empathy, thereby increasing your level of emotional intelligence as a result. 2. Instead of finding fault with others, develop a mindset of positive thoughts and try to seek positive solutions on a given problem. Remember that everyone you deal with is human, and as humans, we make mistakes. Also, by being human, we have the ability to learn from our mistakes, and by creating a positive attitude, we can effectively coach other people and ourselves to move forward instead of blaming other people for events or mistakes. 3. Realize that in order to succeed in the game called life, it becomes necessary to have a high level of interpersonal communication with those around you. You are, for the most part, helpless without other people to help you along the way. By better understanding their emotional needs, you will be able to communicate with them more effectively and more accurately, thus paving the way to your own personal success. In conclusion, emotional intelligence is one's ability to understand their emotions and also the emotions of the people that are around them. The emotionally intelligent person makes each day of their life a lesson in emotional intelligence, and it is their goal to increase their level of emotional intelligence each day as they communicate with other people around them and themselves. 3. Facts about emotional intelligence. So why is it important that we understand emotional intelligence? Are there different kinds of emotional intelligence? Is there a difference between men and women, or between people of different ages, or people doing different kinds of jobs. The key information summarized below is the result of many studies, documented in books, research papers, and case studies during the last few years. Emotional intelligence can be learned and developed. There are now several different ways to teach and learn about emotional intelligence. Whatever your current level, with the right supports, activities, and commitment, you can improve it. Unlike your cognitive intelligence, or IQ, which peaks around age of 17 and stays constant throughout most of your life until it declines in old age, your emotional intelligence can be improved at any age in life. Increases with life experience. Research confirms that emotional intelligence increases with age, peaks in the age group 40 to 49, and then levels out. This could imply that after the age of 49, few new experiences add to or enhance our emotional intelligence. However, I prefer to think that learning about ourselves is a lifelong task. Research using the Multi-Factor Emotional Intelligence Scale, or the MEIS, also suggests that it improves with age, increasing between young adolescence and early adulthood. Everyone's needs are different. We all live among other people, in our family, community, or place of work. And being able to understand, interpret, and use the emotional content of life is useful for all of us. However, different jobs may require different levels and aspects of emotional intelligence. For instance, if you work in a job which involves a high degree of contact with other people, you may need more of an ability to manage emotions. Whereas, if you are a counselor, you may need a higher ability to understand your own emotions. There are some differences between men and women. When inventory was used in as a study of 7,700 men and women, it was found that, whilst there was no difference between men and women on total EQ, or emotional quotient, women scored higher on all three interpersonal abilities: empathy, interpersonal relationship, and social responsibility. Men scored higher on interpersonal dimensions. For example, self-actualization, assertiveness, stress management, stress tolerance, impulse control, and adaptability. For example, reality testing and problem solving. Women are more aware of emotions, demonstrate more empathy, relate better interpersonally, and act with more social responsibility than men. On the other hand, men appear to have better self-regard, are more independent, cope better with stress, are more flexible, solve problems better, and are more optimistic than women. Being emotionally intelligent adds to your general intelligence. Whether you're being systematic about buying your groceries in a supermarket, or being organized about setting and achieving a business plan, or even your life goals, you need a good IQ. When solving a problem, being realistic about what is achievable involves some practical knowledge. Focusing on emotional intelligence doesn't mean throwing out the guidelines and structures that you learned a long time ago to help organize your day-to-day life. An awareness of the emotional aspects of what is happening will add to the abilities measured by IQ. Emotional intelligence is not an oxymoron. An oxymoron is a word or phrase that brings together two contradictory ideas, such as bittersweet or living death. Within what might appear a contradiction, emotional intelligence lies the depth of the concept of EI. It involves both the process of turning into your emotions, sometimes regarded as the soft stuff, and the need to be analytical about emotions and learn new skills in a hard, analytical way. Both are necessary if you are to make good decisions. The hard science of underpinning it. The fields of neurology, medicine, and psychology have all contributed and added to our understanding of emotions and the role of emotions in staying healthy. Affects our ability to make decisions. We make most of our decisions through our emotions, whether we think so or not. Therefore, it is useful for making good decisions. Reflected in relationships. This is the area where you generally observe, at close hand, people with emotional intelligence. They tend to enjoy close relationships and are comfortable with themselves and with others. Measurable. Numerous studies have been conducted which prove that a focus on emotional intelligence has benefits to health, business success, and relationships. The benefits they found include reduced blood pressure, higher levels of personal productivity and team effectiveness, and these benefits are sustained 6 months after people are taught the techniques. 4. The benefits of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a skill in which you examine what you are feeling and why you feel a particular way in a given situation. Developing a high level of EI is a skill that would benefit adults in any occupational field. The ability to examine closely your emotions and thoughts before making decisions or responding verbally leads to more successful work and home environments and to healthier people. The first component of exercising a positive EI is to ask yourself what you are feeling at the time. Knowing what emotions are at the surface of your mind before reacting will help you to respond positively and decrease the chances of prolonging or intensifying issues. Let us consider a possible work scenario. A staff meeting has been scheduled and is set to begin, but several employees have not reported to the conference room. The human resources manager is standing at the front of the room, ready to present information as the tardy employees enter the meeting boisterously. They do not apologize to the group for being late or for their disruptive entrance. Fortunately, this HR manager has a highly developed EI and recognizes that he must act. First, he acknowledges that he is slightly angry, but he also understands that anger is a secondary emotion and not the emotion he wants to respond with. Instead, he admits to himself that he is hurt and disappointed that a small group of individuals chose to disrespect him, their coworkers, and exhibited disregard for their work responsibilities. Acknowledging and accepting the hurt and anger allows the HR manager to put these emotions aside until they may be addressed in the proper setting with the appropriate individuals, and returns his focus to conducting the staff meeting successfully as planned. Emotional intelligence has equipped him to face emotions in a healthy manner. He rules his emotions. They do not rule him. This principle applies to performing his work tasks as well as interacting with colleagues. Practicing EI is also beneficial to maintaining healthy, positive interpersonal relationships at home and with work colleagues. Individuals who are self-aware and consider how their beliefs and behaviors affect interactions with others generally have better relationships. Let us consider this interaction between peers. An office assistant is seated at the table in the employee lounge. A colleague approaches and places a stack of papers on the table directly in front of her. The colleague explains her inability to complete the assignment and states that she needs the office assistant to complete and submit it. The office assistant is emotionally mature and immediately begins to analyze her emotions. Her initial response is anger about her colleague's chosen approach. Then, she recognizes confusion over her role in the potential assignment. Lastly, she realizes she's hurt because her colleague did not extend common courtesy in a greeting or in making the request. With knowledge and acceptance of these emotions, the office assistant is prepared to move forward with an emotionally stable approach. As an emotionally intelligent adult, the office assistant is aware that how she responds will determine the success of the relationship and the work project. She responds by acknowledging a relationship exists between them by offering a greeting, and then inquires as to the specifications of her participation. The office assistant successfully addressed her emotions and diverted the possibility of a conflict between herself and her coworker. Emotional intelligence or maturity leads to happier, healthier, and more successful careers and personal lives. Forming the habit of identifying and analyzing the validity of your emotions before deciding on a course of action is a skill that all adults should acquire. It improves communication and promotes understanding. It assists in problem solving and increases productivity. Emotional intelligence reduces stress and, as a result, stimulates better physical health. Emotionally intelligent individuals are more peaceful and interact calmly with others, thus inspiring peaceful work and home environments. Real-life benefits of a high emotional intelligence. Most of us call it gut feeling, but now psychologists are calling those feelings emotional intelligence, or EI. Emotional intelligence is something like your IQ. Your IQ score doesn't tell you how much you know. It simply tells you what your capacity to learn and comprehend is. Your EI is a tad trickier to measure, and there is a great deal of disagreement on how it should be done. However, scientists can agree that in general, people who have a high EI, meaning they can identify their own emotions and the emotions of others, tend to have certain behaviors. Here's a quick list of some of those behaviors. 1. Adaptability. Developing emotional intelligence allows an individual to understand the emotions or motives of others, and as a result, they are more willing to adapt to a situation than a person who only understands what they personally are feeling. 2. Managing emotions in others. Understanding the emotions in others is a key leadership trait which allows the person with high EI to influence others. Understanding needs and feelings lends itself to developing courses of action that will fulfill those needs, and at the same time, accomplish what the leader wants accomplished. 3. Emotional control. Persons with a high EI understand their own emotions and can analyze them rationally. So when they experience frustration or fear or anger, they are less likely to react to them instinctively and are more likely to act in a controlled and informed manner. 4. Less impulsive. High EI means bad news for marketers who depend on impulsive buys. People with high EI don't react impulsively, but rather look at their feelings and make rational decisions without the interference of overwhelming emotional pull. 5. Strong relationships. Maybe one of the greatest advantages of elevated emotional intelligence is the ability to enter into the sustained strong and fulfilling relationships. Being able to understand and appreciate the emotions of others and not being driven by a me first need can result in more satisfying and less conflictive interactions with the people around you. 6. More optimistic. Face it, we live in a culture that sees the glass half empty more than we see it half full. High EI develops high self-esteem, which in turn gives the person the confidence to see the brighter side, even in difficult situations. 7. Better stress management. Precisely because they have more self-esteem, self-confidence, and an optimistic viewpoint of life, people with developed EI can handle more stress and pressure than others. Being able to identify stress points, not as threats, but simply as challenges to be met, changes the nature of the stress to a manageable condition. There are obvious advantages to developing emotional intelligence, but there are also arguments over how that can be done. Some say it is simply an innate skill that you are born with. Others say you can improve it through training programs like emotional intelligence workshops. Whatever the answer is, it's obvious that understanding ourselves and the emotions of others has a distinct advantage in communications, relationships, and personal behavior. 5. How to improve emotional intelligence. The steps on how to develop your emotional intelligence. The term emotional intelligence, shortened as EI, has something to do with the skill, the capability, or aptitude to single out, evaluate, and deal with one's emotions and the emotions of other people. Contrasting propositions as to how emotional intelligence should be defined and used in the different fields of interest are still on the spotlight. Nevertheless, regardless of the differing definition and usage of the notion of emotional intelligence in certain subject matters, of which is deemed purely technical, still, the term's etymology can be drawn from one of the works of Charles Darwin, particularly on the relevance of emotional expression for subsistence or survival, and second, adaptation. Developing emotional intelligence can be very beneficial for those working with people, especially when in the role of leadership or cooperative group situations. Having a high level of emotional intelligence is synonymous with having good people skills. There are some people who just get along well with others. They are great at listening, solving problems, and always know just what to say and how to say it, regardless of what position they may find themselves in. By nature, they are kind, considerate, and compassionate people, whom other people flock to. In addition to working well with others, people with high levels of emotional intelligence are also good at controlling their own emotions. Even when they are placed in stressful situations, they know how to keep their cool and maintain a positive outlook in order to get the job done. They look honestly at themselves and take criticism well and use it productively to improve themselves and their work. If this does not sound like you, but you wish it did, you need not worry. There are many ways that one can actively work on developing emotional intelligence, so that they will be more of an asset in the workplace. If you are interested in developing your emotional intelligence, you should start by identifying where it is that you are currently and where you would like to be. Start observing how it is that you react to others. Look honestly at how you think and interact with other people. If you find that you are quick to harshly judge or stereotype others, take some time to put yourself in their shoes, and this should help you to be more open and accepting of their individual needs and views. Think critically of your actions in the workplace. Do you constantly seek attention and approval for a job well done? Try to practice being a bit more humble. This sends across the message that you are strong and confident. Instead of always trying to have the focus be all on you, try giving others an equal opportunity to shine. It is much better to give praise than only receive it. This is a great way to work on building and developing emotional intelligence. Closely examine how it is that you react when you are placed in a stressful situation. If you become overly upset, lash out, or try to place the blame all on others, you may need to work on developing emotional intelligence. Being able to remain calm and maintain personal control in difficult situations is a highly valued character, both in the business world and outside of it. You need to learn to keep your emotions in check, even when things do not go as planned. Another way to work on developing emotional intelligence is to take responsibility for your own actions. When you do something wrong and upset someone, do not try to avoid the situation and sweep it under the rug. Instead, you should approach them directly and offer an apology. This will make people want to work with you more. Emotional intelligence is a key element to working well with others, and many employers hold it in high regards when considering job applicants. Developing emotional intelligence will serve you well in both the workplace and in everyday life. So much with defining the concept of emotional intelligence. Let us deal now with how to improve an individual's emotional intelligence. It is conspicuously empirical. The individuals having high EI have higher and better chances of attaining success in all the aspects of life. Before you begin to take emotional intelligence tests, consider some of the principles that are in a way helpful to ameliorate the EI of a person. It is expected that after pursuing this article, all the ideas embedded in here will be incorporated to the readers as their own. 1. Deference. This word is not merely a string of linguistic symbols associated with sounds and conveys a meaning. It is more than how it is being delineated in dictionaries and encyclopedia. It is not something one can acquire from drastic means, but is achievable through the course of time. Unless people will not manifest it to others, this remains an empty concept. Respect is one strong foundation of developing one's EI. If you want others to respect you, you have to learn first how to respect their feelings or emotions. In doing so, mutual deference is then built up. The Golden Rule emphasizes that do unto others what you want others do unto you. When your office mate is in big trouble, regardless of whatever problem that may be, you should show empathy and compassion and try to find feasible solutions that can alleviate his or her problem. If your friend has a different belief because of his religious affiliation, then try not to get into a religious talk that might offend him or her. Remaining silent sometimes is the best way to show respect. 2. Employing the technique of reverse psychology. Of course, it is inevitable that there are times when things go tough or rude on you, and luck is not on your side. Just repose if you are angry and not in a good mood. Try to be composed amidst a trying or difficult situation. Although it is easier said than done, but try to paint a genuine smile to your face every time you encounter a problem. Never go worry. Always remember that having problems is just like sitting in a rocking chair. Although it moves, it does not take you anywhere. And worrying will not definitely add up a day to your life, but it will only do the otherwise. So why worry if it will only worsen your problem? 3. Listening. The wars in history could have been avoided if only all the leaders of the nations had learned to listen to each other's different views, and then try to come up with plans that might erase those differences. Learn to listen, and listen to learn. Most successful people are not loquacious types of individuals, but rather they are the kind of folks who love to listen to others, brilliant ideas, and learn from them. Listening is one of the factors contributing to their sustainable success. It can be said that when you constantly listen and learn to apply the good ideas that you have listened to or have given an ear to, then you will become very successful in everything that you do. The steps on how to improve your emotional intelligence, which is mentioned above, can be easily understood, but building recognition on these ideas is just the first major step in doing the toughest part of improving your EI. The toughest part is living it, which entirely depends on you. 6. How to raise and explore your emotional intelligence. In order to raise your emotional intelligence level, you must become self-aware of the emotions that you are experiencing at any given time. And you must also deal with emotions that you have suppressed in an effort to avoid dealing with them. It is a common tendency to want to push down a certain emotion, or to convince yourself that you are not experiencing a particular emotion because it is uncomfortable, or for some reason that emotion seems inappropriate under the circumstances. Emotional intelligence requires that you know your own emotions and that you know how to manage them. This is not something that you are able to do automatically. It is a process. In order to successfully complete this process, it will help to remember the following facts about your emotions. Emotional intelligence is based on emotional awareness. Emotional intelligence differs from regular or classic intelligence in that you can raise your emotional intelligence practically at will. And being emotionally intelligent is a crucial part of building solid relationships with family, friends, and coworkers. People with high emotional intelligence are appreciated because they are steady, calm, collected, and secure. And they seem to have an innate ability to understand others. They always seem to know what to do in any given situation because their emotions don't overwhelm them. So they are able to think more clearly and act more reasonably. Emotions are constantly changing. Becoming self-aware of your emotions and what triggers them is not the same as dwelling on them. Take note of how the different things you do on any given day cause one emotion to arise and another to subside, and you'll see that emotions are always subject to change. Your emotions are often tied to physical sensation. You've probably noticed that the way your body reacts to the emotion of fear is different from the emotion of happiness. That the way you feel physically when you're happy is different from when you are angry, and so on. For instance, paying attention to the fact that your hands are shaking, that your muscles are tense, and that your heart is beating rapidly, all of which are tied to being afraid, will help you realize why you are afraid, and will help you manage that fear so that you can handle it constructively. Emotional intelligence doesn't replace reason and logic. Becoming aware of what emotions and feelings you are experiencing and knowing how to manage those emotions and feelings will become essentially automatic. Once you no longer struggle to deal with your emotions and feelings instinctively, your thinking and reasoning abilities are clearer and more accurate, and you can use them to work through your emotions without being overcome by them. Just like anything else, you will become better at this as you practice, and practice. When we have an understanding of our emotions, what they are, and how they affect us, we are building the foundation to being self-aware. Self-management then follows with a differing set of competencies, taking us further down the path of raising our emotional intelligence. How to explore your emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence might be described as the ability to control all your emotions and implicitly to exploit wisely your emotional reactions. Also known as EQ, this type of intelligence concerns your social life, because the challenge comes when we are exposed to social factors. Our ability to manage emotions is not necessarily an innate skill. It can be developed and learned so that you will cope successfully with social changes. Exploring our emotional intelligence means matching or connecting two different dimensions of self. The inner side encompasses your personal beliefs and set of values, personal long-term goals, whereas the second dimension concerns the outer world, more precisely, others' emotions, goals, and standards. The way we make connections shows our ability to deal with a wide array of challenges, and it might reveal our capacity to readjust our behavior to different inner and external stimuli. Emotional intelligence is about equilibrium between inner life and social life. We could benefit from our EQ as long as our motivation governing our goals interferes with both plans. A counterbalance between personal and social dimensions brings us closer to a maximum advantage of EQ. We can easily notice that a personal factor has its social correspondent. Therefore, each time we should interrelate socially, we are required to readjust our outcomes to others' values. Strategies regarding our emotional intelligence are extremely useful in job-related domains or educational realms. Therefore, neuro-linguistic programming has developed special techniques that are truly helpful for individuals who are willing to improve their social experiences. EQ-driven techniques enable individuals to improve the level of communication and to expand the way they approach difficult issues. Leadership strategies are based upon the idea that the EQ can go beyond average communication means and might manipulate astutely any audience's perceptions. Leadership is a strategy that involves mainly motivation techniques. In addition to making people trust your assertions, you need to make them adopt a particular behavior. Exploring our emotional intelligence means developing a particular behavior within a particular context. Yet the stress still falls on the human factor, because the fundamental purpose of our emotional intelligence relies on others' reactions and feedbacks. Usually, feedbacks stand for a relevant reflection of our emotional intelligence level. To sum up, emotional intelligence governs our lives, since we are involved in a wide array of social activities. And the way we come to benefit from our and others' emotions is definitely a lifetime challenge. 7. Ways of increasing your emotional intelligence. 1. Get it that all your emotions are okay. We are designed to have emotions. They have a purpose. They are our internal guidance system. We have ignored them. We are taught by our culture and our family to ignore them. Science is now showing us the value of emotion. People who use emotion and reason together are more successful and happier than those who don't. Look to surround yourself with the messages that show yourself that emotions are okay. All of them. Some ways to do that is through books, other forms of reading, tapes, websites, friends, mentors, coaches, and therapists. 2. Figure out the message that your emotion is trying to tell you. Yes, your emotions are telling you something. At the most basic level, through pleasurable feelings, they are telling you to move towards something. Through unpleasant feelings, they are telling you to move away from something. When you feel something, ask yourself, what is it that I am feeling, and what is the message? To stop and ask will provide you with information. If you are angry, it will be a message to protect your boundaries. If you feel anxiety, it may be a message to proceed with caution. Trust your emotions. They will guide you more accurately than any other skills you have developed. 3. Understand the beliefs that are behind the emotion. Each emotion we experience is driven by a set of thoughts or beliefs about ourselves, other people, and the world around us, as well as our religious or spiritual beliefs. The beliefs tend to be subconscious, although we can access them if we make a point of it. Some of the beliefs will be accurate, and some will be inaccurate. We form these beliefs from the time we are very young, when our emotions seem to be a large reaction to a small event. It is a good idea to examine the beliefs underlying our reaction. Sometimes we need help to uncover our beliefs. That is where a friend or coach or therapist can be valuable. This is an ongoing process of self-discovery that leads to a healthier and happier life. 4. Give your emotion a name and recognize where it is in the body. The first step to increase our emotional intelligence is to develop the EI competency known as self-awareness. The way to start developing this awareness is to be able to give a name to what we are feeling and to turn our attention to our body to see where we are feeling it physically and to be able to describe how it feels. In the beginning, naming emotions can be confusing because there are so many subtle shades and variations. We have many different names for many different emotions. The way to start is to recognize 6 basic emotions and initially name your emotions as one of these 6. All emotions will fall under one of these basic categories. They are happiness, anger, fear, sadness, disgust, and surprise. 5. Suspend judgment about the emotion and about yourself. One of the reasons we do not know our emotions is because it feels unsafe to do so. We have been taught that emotions get in the way, have no value, or that certain emotions mean you are bad for having them. This is simply not true. It is the judgment about our emotions that cause us to feel unsafe. It is this judgment that causes us to run from our emotions. Some of us hide in alcohol, drugs, shopping, sex, gambling, obsessive-compulsive behaviors, or chronic illness. If there was only one change to make around emotion, this would be the most important one. The negative self-judgment is destructive, demoralizing, and deflating. It keeps us from recognizing the truth, from feeling good, and from developing our potential. 6. Be compassionate with yourself. The emotion has a good reason for being there. This is a tool to counteract the negative self-judgment. Remember how you felt the last time you were upset about something, and someone was able to acknowledge how you felt was perfectly justified under the circumstances, and they were sympathetic to you? Would it have helped if they were too critical? No. So is there any value in treating yourself harshly? No. Do we not gravitate towards people who are kind to us? Yes. So why is it you would treat yourself differently than this? We are all human beings who are trying to do the best we can with the psychological resources that we have. Think of these things next time you treat yourself harshly. Replace it with kind parenting towards yourself. This will go much further than criticism and harsh internal reprimands that you should be stronger, better, and more. 7. Allow yourself to manage the emotion. This is not the same as suppression or denial. Part of managing your emotions also concerns 2 emotional intelligence competencies put forth. The first competency is called stress tolerance and is defined as the ability to withstand adverse events and stressful situations without falling apart by actively and positively coping with stress. This ability is based on 1. A capacity to choose courses of action for dealing with stress. 2. An optimistic disposition towards new experiences and change in general, and towards your own ability to successfully overcome the specific problem at hand. And 3. A feeling that you can control or influence the stressful situation by staying calm and maintaining control. The second competency is called impulse control and is defined as the ability to resist or delay an impulse, drive, or temptation to act. Impulse control entails a capacity for accepting your aggressive impulses, being composed and controlling aggression, hostility, and irresponsible behavior. Problems in impulse control are manifested by low frustration tolerance, impulsiveness, anger control problems, abusiveness, loss of self-control, and explosive and unpredictable behavior. 8. Recognize when your emotion is a heightened reaction due to fatigue, lack of sleep, hunger, time of day, or even loneliness. Get your needs met. In order to increase your stress tolerance so you can more effectively cope with the challenges that you experience in life, some basic needs have to be adequately met. This is where it becomes important to take care of yourself. The basic needs are exercise, adequate quantity and quality of sleep, good nutrition, and an unhurried life. These 4 alone would keep the majority of us busy making changes, and they are extremely worthwhile. 9. Express your emotion by talking or journaling or talking respectively to the person who impacted you. Part of management is the expression, the action. Expression of emotion is going to come out whether we like it or not. If we do not know how to do it in a healthy way, it will get expressed by pain and illness in the body, or by blowing up at a family member, friend, or even the store clerk. When the emotion is in response to another person's actions, the expression usually needs to take place in the form of telling that person how their actions have impacted you and how you would like to remedy the situation. However, direct, honest, and respectful communication is the key. Verbal and written expression of emotion has been shown to reduce visits to the doctor, and subjects report an increased sense of well-being. People who journal process their emotions faster and move through any issue to successful resolution more quickly. People who keep their emotions bottled up have a higher tendency towards cardiovascular diseases, particularly high blood pressure, that does not seem to respond much to medication. 10. Take appropriate action on the message. Avoid rumination. Notice when you are ruminating. If you are ruminating, it is another message that you have not adequately acknowledged the emotion that you are feeling, have not yet determined the message in the emotion, and have not taken the action that is right for you. When you do these things, the rumination will dissipate by itself. This honoring of emotional process is much more pleasant and organic of a way of ceasing rumination. 8. Emotional intelligence and its role in personal relationships. Emotional intelligence is the ability within a person to control and perceive emotions. It therefore happens to play an important role in our relationships. One makes and breaks during the course of his lifetime. Relationships may develop when two people find each other interesting, have something in common, or just enjoy each other's company. For a relationship to be strong and last longer, there has to be some level of emotional attachment between those in that particular relationship. It can be observed in daily life with ease that those relationships without any emotional attachment and understanding, and those with stakes, cease to exist. Understanding is therefore vital in any relationship. This comes with emotional intelligence. With emotional intelligence, a person can understand the other, and he can perceive his emotions and feelings. In every instant, he would know what to say and what to do, which would bring up the morale of the other person and not make him disappointed or sad. If things go wrong, the person would know how to react and resolve things in a way that nobody gets hurt. Communication, too, is equally important in long-lasting relationships. Communication does not only refer to speaking. It does not only mean to say the right things at the right times, but also to stay silent and listen to the other person when need be. A good communicator will judge the mood and emotions of the other person and act accordingly, bringing emotional intelligence into play. Somebody with a high emotional intelligence will always have an edge in a personal relationship compared to a person with lower emotional intelligence. A good level of communication determines how the relationship will continue and for how long. In every relationship, whether it is a friendship or marriage, communication is critical, not to mention the importance of communication in business organizations. Patience and managing stress will help a relationship work for longer time periods. As when one person is not happy with the way things are going with the other, understanding how he might be feeling should act accordingly and help him get out of that situation for a better and stronger relationship. In fact, if people in relationships do not have emotional intelligence, their relationship would not last too long, and it would be very dry. They would not understand each other on any matter. The person would be without any feelings for the other and without any sense of keeping relationships. 9. Emotional intelligence and self-esteem. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is about being aware of your emotions. If you have a high emotional intelligence, you know what you are feeling from a moment to moment. And in most cases, you also know why you are feeling as you do. Furthermore, you know what it is that you need to do in order to change your emotions in situations when you wish to feel differently. Emotional intelligence thus makes you more aware of your personal needs, and it increases your ability to take good care of yourself. High emotional intelligence cannot be unaccompanied by high self-awareness. Thus, if you have a high EQ, you also know yourself well. It is easier to build a high self-esteem, i.e., to develop a good relationship with yourself, when you know yourself. How can you accept and love someone you don't know? For this reason, self-esteem and emotional intelligence go hand in hand. As you raise your emotional intelligence, you also learn to understand yourself better, accept yourself, satisfy your personal needs, and value yourself more. Everything gets easier when you improve the relationship with yourself. Emotional intelligence is not only about understanding oneself, but also about understanding other people. With a high EQ, you can enter a room full of people and immediately get a sense of how the people in that room are feeling at that moment. You can understand other people's needs better, and this makes it easier for you to help them to satisfy those needs. This makes it easier to handle all different kinds of people because you know how to make them feel good. We all have a social need, and as we raise our emotional intelligence, we become better at building and keeping relationships that help us satisfy that need. We make ourselves feel better, and we raise our self-esteem by helping others feel good. To raise your emotional intelligence, you simply have to listen to yourself more often. Take a break and ask your body what it is feeling. Do you feel some tension or pain anywhere? Listen to your intuition or your gut feeling. As soon as you open up to the information that is already within you, you will find out that you know much more than you were aware of before. Do not ignore or try to push emotions away. They have something important to tell you. Your emotions will help you to raise your self-esteem. 10. Why being emotionally aware is important. It is said that if you are in control, to some degree, of your emotions, you are more able to be successful in the long run than, say, somebody who is academically brilliant. How many of us have heard stories of individuals who have a high IQ, yet crumble when it comes to doing exams? How many of us have seen a soccer player put a penalty away easily when the team are cruising 4-0 on an average game, yet blazes one over the bar if it is the deciding penalty that will secure them a place in the final? We have seen it time and time again. Being clever is simply not good enough. You have to be smart as well, emotionally, as well as academically. And being emotionally intelligent is the best way to do that. It affects health. It goes without saying that if you can't manage your emotions, you are more susceptible to stress. Period. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about keeping negative feelings inside of yourself. That causes more harm than good. You need to express your feelings in a non-destructive way, obviously, or you can make yourself ill. But not being emotionally aware will make you feel depressed, stressed, and can cause all sorts of bodily breakdowns, like weakening the immune system to raising your blood pressure. Mental well-being. It also goes without saying that if you cannot manage your emotions and suffer from stress, this will impact your mental health. This may lead you to have mood swings, suffer a burnout, and can leave you isolated and lonely as you do not communicate and connect very easily, so you begin losing friends and cut out relationships. Your work life. Being able to manage your emotions and communicate effectively with other people, including building rapport with other coworkers, colleagues, and managers, will mean better work relationships, being able to inspire, and better resolution of inevitable work conflicts. You will be seen as being able to be a great communicator, which will increase productivity and team morale. Increasing your emotional intelligence is a 5-step plan. And when these steps are mastered, not only will you feel better about yourself and being around other people, you will also become more healthier and more focused in your life. Reduce your stress levels. Being aware of your emotions and how to manage them. Being able to connect with other people using nonverbal clues and other body language. The art of using humor to help resolve conflict and inevitable challenges. Learning how to use this all to resolve conflicts in a positive way and with confidence. Mastering the above will help you become more of an emotionally manageable person, and you will be able to develop rapport, increase your emotional awareness, and feel more better. But what do you think? Let me know in the box below. Let's look at each one. 1. Reducing your stress levels. You need to be aware of when you are stressed, how you feel, what parts of the body are affected, what triggered the stress levels, and what tends to help relieve the stress. This can either be something that can quieten you down or something that can be stimulating. Everybody is different and therefore has different ways of dealing with stress. If you are introverted, withdrawn, or depressed, you will tend to react more effectively to activities that stimulate you. Likewise, if you get angry or agitated, activities that quiet you down will be your best bet. 2. Being aware of your emotions and how to manage them. Having a moment-to-moment awareness of your emotions is a priceless commodity, and you will be able to quickly identify which things help you be positive, and likewise, the stuff that makes you negative. But like I said before, when I talk about managing your emotions, I'm not talking about suppressing them. You need to release them in a healthy way in order for you to begin the healing process. Meditation and being in the now is a great way of releasing negativity, as well as negativity is that of the ego and not of the soul. Conversely, if you are very angry, it may be worthwhile to buy a punch bag, and when you get home, punch some wind. Learning to release your negative emotions in a safe and constructive way is a great way to reclaim your peace of mind, as well as resolve and improve relationships. 3. Being able to connect with other people using nonverbal clues and other body language. Nonverbal communication makes up for about 70% of all of the total conversation. So it makes sense to try to master the nonverbal clues, such as breathing, facial expressions, and tone, to name a few. Reading about NLP and body language will also be of extreme help. As always, to be a great communicator and rapport developer, try to remain eye contact and keep your breathing at the same pace as theirs, unless they are breathing really quickly, that is. These small tips help you to develop a good relationship, and you will be surprised at how this helps with the overall goal. The art of using humor to help resolve conflict and inevitable challenges. There's naught wrong with a good belly laugh. Many of you will have heard someone say this, or something similar, and for good reason. Laughter is probably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated ways of not only reducing stress and keeping your head clear, but also to diffuse a bad situation. But I said art in the title, and for good reason. There's a small knack. You can laugh at the wrong time, so a fair judgment of the situation is needed here. But a small quick does a humor can help resolve differences in opinion, while a big belly laugh in the privacy of your own company, trying to see the funny side of a bad situation, can help you go through hardships in life. I know, this may sound impossible to do at first, but you do get into it. And after all, why not? Why should you not let your inner peace be spoiled and ruined due to an exterior circumstance? Laughing helps clear your mind so you can be less rigid and stiff in your thinking, allowing more creative ways to solve a problem to emerge. See the positive side of it, and will help you get your nervous system back into balance. Do not underestimate the power of a good laugh. 5. Learning how to use this all to resolve conflicts in a positive way, and with confidence. Let's be honest. Although we all want harmonious and peaceful relationships, battles and disagreements are bound to happen. Why? Because everybody has a difference in opinion, and nearly everybody, apart from a small minority, is right. So there is bound to be some hard talking around. This is where grounding yourself and being in the now helps. You help clear your mind of negativity and previous mental baggages, and this will result in a more effective and peaceful outcome. But don't forget, if you simply cannot see the other person's point of view, you can always agree to disagree, or at the very worst, forgive. This will keep the constructive aspect of the argument still strong, without it spilling over and causing too much hurt. Forgiveness helps you to restore peace of mind, keeps you focused, reduces stress, and restores broken friendships and relationships. And how do you forgive? Just let it go. 11. Emotional intelligence and happiness. People often lack emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has been debated in scientific journals. EI has to cover the following areas: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. These are areas that are relevant to depression. Without awareness, for example, you will not know your feelings at all. Without self-management, you will always be in trouble because you will be unable to control and manage your emotional world. Without social awareness, you will be having a hard time establishing healthy relationships with people around you because you will be unaware of their emotional world. Similarly, without the ability to manage your relationships, you will probably have lots of problems with people who are around you. All of these are relevant areas that I am sure we all need to work on in order for us to be able to improve our internal world, as well as our external reality. When EI is not present, we still feel what we feel. I want to make sure that you understand that what you feel is always okay. You have to respect what you are feeling. Are you feeling scared, angry, lonely, misunderstood, stressed out? It's okay to feel what you feel. Respect your feelings, and do not let anyone disrespect them either. If people disrespect your feelings, they are disrespecting you, and that is not acceptable. So understand your feelings. Ask yourself, what is the cause of those feelings, and where are they coming from? Have you felt this way before? Start by being curious about your internal emotional world. In this way, you are more likely to have a better understanding, awareness, and perhaps control over your emotions. Although your feelings are always okay, you are always responsible for your actions, and it is derivative consequences. For instance, if you are angry and hit someone, you are responsible for hurting the someone. We all responsible for our actions. If you are unfaithful to your woman or man, and the person finds out, you are always responsible for the consequences of your unfaithfulness. You are always responsible for your consequences. I am repeating it because it is important to understand that concept of responsibility. However, please understand that your feelings are always okay. But how you act out in trying to alleviate your internal world sometimes can be damaging for yourself. And, in fact, often we run from ourselves. We run from what we are really feeling. Why? Because it's scary to be vulnerable. We are not used to it. It feels uncomfortable. That is why. Seldom we faced our emotions. Rarely we face the reason why we are alone and lonely. Because even though it's not ideal, it is our comfort zone. And guess what comfort zones are comfortable? That is why most of us tend to run from what is bothering us, from what we need to improve. We end up becoming expert at running been evasive at escaping our reality. Sadly, we tend to comfort in our pathologies. How would people run, you ask? Have you seen an anorexic, an alcoholic, a workaholic, a sex addict, a shopping addict? All of these are types of pathologies that share the same root. They are acting out on feelings that they have not faced. They are running away from what they are really feeling. Many times, these people will have no clue what they are really running from. Some of them will know, but they will not know how to face their feelings. So all of these examples of level of awareness are our emotional world. That is why it is important to know and understand the magnitude of our feelings. It is definitely not easy, but the rewards is to gain better control of yourself as an emotional being that you already are. These people are not technically alone because they always have people calling them, visiting them, and so on or so forth. Or how about workaholics? They are always busy with something. This latter group uses their work to try to fill something in their lives. 12. Emotional responsibility and self-management. Infants are naturally reliant on others, completely depending on their parents for all their physical and emotional needs. This dependence continues into childhood, where most needs continue to be met by parents, while significant others, including adults and children, begin to play an increasingly important role with regard to emotional needs, such as the need for approval and belonging. This dependency is an important part of development, as it creates a space in which a child is open to learning the social norms and acceptable behaviors, adopting these in the search for attention and approval, behaving in a manner that is likely to result in their emotional needs being met. Unfortunately, as we grow older, this need and dependence has an increasing likelihood of eliciting unwanted results, ranging from fear and anxiety to bullying and other mob-induced behavior. This does not mean that we, as human beings, can function without others, or that we should even try, but rather that as we grow, we need to become sufficiently self-reliant as to be able to determine how to behave and take responsibility for our choices. Responsibility may seem scary, especially when applied as a duty, obligation, or liability for which someone is held accountable. In fact, it may even be the fear of responsibility that in some ways holds us hostage. However, before we consider how we are responsible to others, let's first look at how we are responsible to ourselves. Consider this. Your kids are fighting in the lounge, screaming and yelling at each other. You go in to separate them and ask who started. What you hear is a barrage of blame, which you may find yourself trying to untangle. Yet, in this sibling language of dependence, where he hit me first and she took my iPad without asking, your children are not only justifying their behavior and looking to escape responsibility for the fight. What they are doing is justifying their emotionally driven response to which they merely reacted. This may appear to be the immature response of a child, but don't we all, in some way or another, account for our feelings and responses by referring to an event or people, or even our childhood? It is true that feelings of vulnerability can make us avoid situations, hold us back from taking risks. Anger can propel us to protect ourselves or to seek justice. How we respond to a situation is often influenced, if not governed, by our emotions. When our emotional response is seen to be the result of individuals' actions or events, we are essentially at the mercy of others, powerless. So, if he hit me first, he made me angry and I hit him back. While it may appear as if we relieve ourselves of responsibility for our actions. No longer being held accountable, the price we pay is high. When we attribute our emotional response to a situation or person, we become powerless, completely dependent on the outside world for how we feel and act. Or should I say, react? Because while we may act to avoid a negative feeling, or to retain or re-experience a positive one, we do this much like a drug addict with no consideration for the bigger picture. Taking back your power means recognizing how your thoughts and attributions contribute to and even create your feelings. In my previous article, EQ, Know Yourself, I referred to these as emotional thoughts. Thoughts which elicit emotion. Simply put, if I think of something as being dangerous, I'm going to experience fear. And if I fear it, I will avoid it. But why is this dangerous? Why do some people regard starting their own business as a challenge, while others see it as too risky to even try? A part of this is logical, cognitive evaluation of the environment, and a healthy consideration for the potential risks involved. But a part of this evaluation has to include thoughts regarding one's self, including one's abilities and resources. The moment you go there in your head, poor self-esteem, self-doubt, and anxiety, as well as fears regarding support structures and possible judgment of others, all come crashing in. It is the same with every single experience where our beliefs about ourselves and others, as well as our beliefs about the world that influences how we interpret them, and through this the meaning we attribute to them. It is this meaning that then influences how we feel and ultimately react. Emotional intelligence is not about ignoring your emotions or trying to act in spite of them. It comes from listening to the message our emotions are communicating to us, understanding that these are influenced by our emotional thoughts and redesigning them. To achieve this, we have to know ourselves and accept responsibility for how we feel, recognizing and acknowledging that our feelings are generally the consequence of our own thoughts about life events and interpersonal situations. 13. Ways your emotional intelligence affects your life. Here are a few ways it can have an impact on how you live your life. 1. Helps you avoid social faux pas. If you put your foot in your mouth because you have misread how someone feels about something, then you may have a low EI. If someone has been in a car accident and they are distressed, and you make a joke about it, it is not only in poor taste, but you have also misjudged the stress the person is feeling because of it. 2. Helps to avoid potential catastrophe. If you are being led into a dangerous situation because someone is ignorant, then if you have a high EI, then you should realize that you are probably doing something that will lead to a catastrophe. Part of EI is based upon making your own judgment calls without relying on those of others. There are various emotional intelligence training activities which can help overcome this. 3. Helps to understand how you feel. Before you experience a situation, it will help you gauge how you will react to it. If someone was to tell you about a situation that they were in that made them feel a specific way, then you were able to feel what they felt or are aware of how you would have felt, then you probably have a high EI. 4. Enables you to show compassion. If you find it hard to find compassion to others, then there is a good chance you have a low emotional intelligence. There are emotional intelligence workshops which can help rectify this. You should feel some compassion when you hear about the plight of starving children in Africa. If you can't, well, my emotional intelligence makes me feel compassion for you and the children. 5. Allows you to feel happy for others. If you find it hard to get that infective feeling of happiness when others around you are happy, you probably need to work on your EI. 6. Helps you problem solve. It is worth covering in greater detail, however. If you can feel what is wrong, then you can change your attitude to help fix the situation. 7. Enables you to counsel others in their time of need. This is similar to the first point. If you don't make a social faux pas, then you are probably halfway there. If you can find a way to relate to someone on an emotional level, then you will be better equipped to give them the advice that they need. Conclusion. There are a number of definitions for it, emotional intelligence. Most people will define this as an art whereby an individual is able to synchronize his mind and body acts through mind control acts. Some define the subject as a high aura impulses, which aid an individual react to a situation. All these individuals are right. Any individual who's attained emotional cleverness creates lots of advantages in his life. It is very important to understand a normal individual has a certain degree of emotional intelligence. However, people can train their minds to attain higher levels of this art. There are quite a number of informational sites which have detailed information on how people can train their minds to attain emotional intelligence. These informational sites are very important to individuals who may be interested in training their minds to attain emotional intelligence. For anyone interested in attaining emotional intelligence, then creating a right mental attitude before engaging these acts determines if one is actually going to be successful in the art. It is very important for individuals to build up belief systems which are effective, beneficial in delivering the kind of success they wish to achieve. One should always seek information on how they can manipulate, or rather, take advantage of universal laws to effect the desired change. Contrary to what many people believe, laws of attraction are very instrumental in shaping an individual personality. People who encourage wrong mental thoughts to crowd their minds, more often than not, have a very negative personality, which hinders good overall lifestyles. It is very important for any individual to train their minds to be hopeful in any given situation, as this is the essence of not only gaining emotional cleverness, but also success in anything an individual does. It is very important to understand that attaining self-development acts in any area of life is not a one-day activity. One should always be consistent and persistent in any self-development act so as to achieve the desired success. The level for self-development success achievement will always be measured by efforts an individual is willing to put forth towards attaining what he or she desires. People who've attained arts of emotional intelligence have quite a number of benefits working for them. For instance, it is very possible for individuals who've attained such success to exude acts such as telepathy, mind reading, and even healing abilities, through the power of their minds. There is no limit to what an individual can attain through affecting power of their minds. It's only necessary for one to create an interest and a belief system that they can achieve what they desire to achieve through power in their minds. As earlier mentioned, in seeing an explanation of what is emotional intelligence, people will have different sentiments and thoughts towards different meanings. However, attaining acts of emotional intelligence are very beneficial to any individual interested in attaining any life success.
Emotional Maturity: Understanding the Child and the Adult in You. Written by Rita Chester. Narrated by Kendra Lords. Emotional Maturity: Understanding the Child and the Adult in You by Rita Chester. What is maturity? When you hear the word maturity, what comes to mind? Do you think it means old and boring? Does it sound like someone who doesn't have any fun? Do you imagine that maturity is something to be avoided at all costs? Do you equate maturity with responsibility and consider that a reason to run? Do you think it means being crotchety and disapproving? Does maturity make you remember a bunch of old people sitting around doing nothing, and you find that concept abhorrent? Here are some other ideas about what maturity might mean. 1. Maturity might mean having wisdom to share. This does not mean being a busybody and sticking your nose in other people's business. It does not mean giving unwanted advice. It does not mean manipulatively giving your opinion so as to get your own way. Wisdom is about sharing life experience in such a way that others, who desire the information, can make life-affirming and ultimately more satisfying choices for their own lives. Perhaps you have learned how to have more satisfying relationships, or how to have rewarding marital relationships, or how to communicate effectively. Great wisdom is about how to become more effective in life, how to end up happier, and how to most enjoy living. Think of maturity as having wisdom to share. How are you wise? 2. The mature person is not reactive. With maturity, you learn to see situations from a higher perspective. You take the anger out of your potential responses and stop imagining that others are out to do you harm. You take responsibility for your reactions and give up looking for reasons and excuses to be angry at things, people, and the past. You pay attention to situations and take action in advance so you don't end up feeling victimized. Rather than characterizing others as mean, you look to understand the pain they are driven by. You take responsibility for the kinds of people you allow in your life so that you have gratifying human interactions. Associating with those who talk about mistreating others is an invitation to allow your own mistreatment. 3. Maturity means to expect the best of yourself and others. Releasing mediocre product and underperformance is a sign that you are developing maturity in your own life and work. 4. Maturity is about accepting 100% responsibility for your life, your results, your happiness, and your interactions with others. As dependent children, there is potential for being victimized. When we behave maturely, we allow our own victimization to become a thing of the past. We quickly see how we dropped the ball of responsibility and use it as a lesson for the future. Maturity creates the mental construct that we cannot be victimized. 5. Maturity also means choosing to see the world through eyes of love. This means you choose not to take things personally. Maturity understands that those in pain hurt everyone, even if they hurt you. It is not personal to you. That is the way they treat everyone. Maturity understands that it is our responsibility to recognize those in pain and not to invite or allow our own targeting. Maturity does not make the other person wrong. Maturity simply recognizes what is without distortion or romanticizing. Maturity takes appropriate precautionary action rather than blindly plunging in pretending not to see. 6. Maturity recognizes that self is not the center of the universe. Many of us go far into adulthood still believing that the world revolves around us. Here are some ways to recognize maturity in this context. The mature person realizes that the behavior of others tells us about them, not about us. The mature person does not take on the anger of others and feel ashamed. The mature person allows others to have their own feelings. The mature person has given up manipulation and only seeks willing cooperation from others. Maturity means many positive and exciting things. It's about living life fully in charge. It's about giving up self-victimization in all its forms. It's about seeing the prime picture in life. It's about giving up games and playing like a pro. It's about seeing what is actually going on in life and no longer colluding with fooling yourself. Maturity is a joyous and free position to play life from. What is emotional maturity? To have emotional maturity, then, is to have a specific control over one's emotions. An emotionally mature person has experienced the spectrum of emotions, understands the consequences of each, and knows the benefits of being in control of them. Most importantly, an emotionally mature person knows what kinds of things sets off different emotions in them, and they know how to identify each emotion clearly. They don't fall into a panic trying to determine what they feel and how they should react. They know, and they manage themselves accordingly. One of the things that stand in most people's way from reaching emotional maturity is learning how to deal with stress. This stress management training course lays down some handy guidelines, and this course will teach you how to identify and reduce stress that you can't avoid. To have emotional maturity means to have developed, to some extent, the characteristics listed below. Flexibility. Flexibility means understanding that not everything is going to go your way, and that's just a fact of life. Being able to make compromises, especially when it involves other people, is a sure sign of emotional maturity. Developing a sense of flexibility requires a few different traits. Patience, for one. If you can't keep your cool during times of change, or when spontaneous issues arrive, you won't be able to make calm and informed decisions. A healthy amount of confidence. Confidence is one of the elements that make up emotional maturity, but it has to be a healthy amount. Too much confidence can border into arrogance. Not enough confidence can fall into low self-esteem. You need a balance of confidence and self-awareness to trust in your own decisions, but take the criticism necessary if you've made the wrong choice. Empathy. It isn't enough to be able to identify your own emotions. You also need to be able to identify and relate to the emotions of others. When you have empathy for other people, only good things can come. Understanding, compromise, and a greater emotional intelligence all around. Having empathy for others is also a form of respect, and it makes you more approachable. Both important traits that make up an emotionally mature person. Accountability. Part of being emotionally mature means being able to admit when you're wrong and face the consequences for your own mistakes with understanding and dignity. Think about people who don't take accountability for things that they've done. Often, they'll be in denial of any wrongdoing, and sometimes even try to place the blame on somebody else. Part of being accountable means being responsible. You can't have emotional maturity without both. Learn the basics of accountability in this course on management. Self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of the foundations of emotional maturity. When you're self-aware, it means being able to identify your emotional states, see your thoughts and actions from all angles, and judge yourself based on the same standards that you judge others. People who are self-aware tend to be better at taking criticism, which is another supporting trait of emotional maturity. This is because they are often more critical of themselves to begin with, being more perceptive of their own actions and emotions. Criteria of emotional maturity. A relative freedom from symptoms that are produced by tensions and anxieties. The symptoms produced from tensions and anxieties can include physical distress, headaches, stomach problems, rapid heart rate, and emotional distress, worry, restlessness, panic. Anxiety is a major health problem affecting millions of people every day. It negatively affects all levels of people's lives, their mental and physical health, relationships, and work. To live free of its destructive symptoms and consequences is to cope with life's stress in a healthy manner, learn to relax, release worries, and develop inner peace. The capacity to find more satisfaction in giving than receiving. People who give of themselves, their time, attention, help, finances, or what they are able, are generally more fulfilled and happy than those who do not. People who are primarily takers are more likely to use others for their own personal gain and are often considered selfish, stingy, and/or greedy. Like the old Scrooge, they end up miserable. Givers, on the other hand, want to contribute and make a positive difference in this world. It is healthy to give cheerfully and willingly as it contributes to our sense of purpose and helps us connect with others and our society. The ability to deal constructively with reality. To deal with reality in a constructive manner, we must face truth, the facts, rather than deny them. Running from problems or hoping they do not exist does not make them go away. Regardless of how unpleasant they may be at times, facing the facts is the first step to dealing with any situation. When people have difficulty facing reality, they resort to all sorts of unhealthy ways to deal with the unpleasant feelings and pain. They try to soothe themselves with alcohol, drugs, or any other way that temporarily masks their reality and pain. There are healthy and constructive ways to cope that lead to greater emotional maturity and growth. It may not be the easiest path to take, but it leads to healing, lasting comfort, and hope. The capacity to adapt to change. Change is not always easy. It can turn our world upside down at times and cause a great deal of stress, whether the change is minor, like having to change our plans for the day, or more significant, such as moving to a new home, changing jobs, getting married or divorced, Adapting to change is to make necessary adjustments. Sometimes the most important adjustment is our attitude. Change can annoy us as it disrupts our routine and expectations, but we can choose to accept it and allow ourselves time to get comfortable with change. The capacity to relate to other people in a constant manner with mutual satisfaction and helpfulness. Life is all about relationships. We relate to others every single day. Whether it is a relative, coworker, neighbor, or stranger, our lives are intertwined with others. Love and respect are two key factors to relating successfully to others. Unlike dysfunctional relationships, healthy relationships are stable and provide deep satisfaction and joy. The capacity to sublimate, to direct one's instinctive, hostile energy into creative and constructive outlets. If we were to release all our frustration and anger on the world, we would have a hostile existence. Instead, we can take that energy and direct it into something good and productive. It has long been said that sports is a great outlet of extra energy. Anything that is positive, constructive, and creative can redirect our energies and put them to good use. The capacity to love. Love is the greatest power in the world. As humans, we are born with the capacity to love. The greatest differences between us are how we communicate our love. Love cures people, both the ones who give it and the ones who receive it. One does not fall in love. One grows into love, and love grows in him. Self-love is not opposed to love of other people. You cannot really love yourself and do yourself a favor without doing people a favor, and vice versa. Steps to emotional maturity. 1. Accept yourself. See your behavior patterns as they are. If you're not sure how easily to react in an immature way, ask a friend or use yoga or meditation techniques to help you become aware of how you react in different situations. 2. Take responsibility. Your anger is your own reaction and no one else's. Remember that no one can make you angry. Others are only catalysts. 3. Breathe. Yoga breathing techniques, such as the alternate nostril breath, can balance the emotion in seconds. 4. Walk away. Going outside for a walk can clear frustration or temper tantrums. Affirm to yourself, I will walk until this anger goes away. You'll be surprised how quickly you will be able to let go of it, especially if it's raining. 5. Practice being unselfish. Give something you really value, like an item of clothing, away to a friend. Observe how great it feels after the initial wrench. 6. Use the mantra, I am in control of my feelings. Repeat it 30 times daily on waking and in any situation when you lose your cool. 7. Listen. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Don't interrupt when they are talking, and repeat back to them what you've heard. Genuinely appreciate what they are saying. 8. Forgive yourself and move on. Don't dwell on what you've done in the past. Focus on making things right now. Emotional maturity is vital for success and happiness. The ability to control your emotions and take full responsibility for your life and its opportunities and dramas is one of the key skills necessary for success, balance, and happiness. There may be times during life when it is appropriate to feel guilt, anger, resentment, fear, jealousy, disappointment, grief, insecure, blame, and hundreds of other feelings due either to your belief system and values or the circumstances and people that life throws in your path. Some people have the ability to experience these various emotions and then let them go quickly, leaving no long-term negative residual effects. Others, on the other hand, seem to remain stuck in any one of these negative emotions, to their detriment, I might add. Emotional maturity is the ability to see life clearly, to deal in what is, not what can be or was. This doesn't mean to imply that a person shouldn't dream, hope, plan, set goals, and have a desire for a better future. It only means that life is lived in the present, not the future. Any negative emotions in the present that are permitted more time or energy than they deserve will tend to take their toll on some aspect of your life in the future. Emotional maturity is the ability to deal in what is and to see what caused what is as a part of an ongoing process and drama of life. To expect life to be easy or comfortable all the time is to be naive. To expect life to be hard and challenging all the time is to come at life from a consciousness of struggle. There's no need to struggle. There's no need to beat yourself or others up emotionally because of your unrealistic expectations for life and the people who are in your life. Emotional maturity is a quiet acceptance of the ebb and flow of life's issues, opportunities, difficulties, challenges, risks, mistakes, failures, achievements, growth, and whatever else is put on your plate, regardless of whether you are 20, 40, or 70 years old. Whether you are wealthy or destitute, single or married, working or retired, with emotional maturity, you will make better decisions, make better choices, have more fun, have less stress, make more money, have better balance in life. So it certainly makes sense to achieve as much of it as you can as you travel through life. Sources of emotional immaturity. Emotional immaturity is the result of or a combination of one of two things. These two things are the primary source of emotional immaturity. Combined, they reflect a troubled individual and personality. Emotional trauma. Children and even teenagers lack the experience and emotional stability to deal with the trauma that can result from abuse, abandonment, being unloved, or even the death of someone close. So many of the problems that I, as a pastor and counselor, deal with stem from these emotional traumas inflicted in those tender and delicate childhood years. A child or even teenagers often deal with trauma by pretending it never happened. They try to live their lives by hiding their injury. They are bleeding inside while pretending outside that all is well. The result of this is devastating. They stop growing or maturing emotionally. When something tragic, say sexual abuse, happens to a 9-year-old, that 9-year-old stops growing emotionally. He or she may grow physically by all outward appearances, but emotionally, in many ways, he or she is still a 9-year-old. It may manifest itself in sexual habits, sexual interest, and intimacy in marriage. There's been many cases where two 20-year-olds get married, but because of childhood emotional injuries, it is more like a marriage between children, and within a very short amount of time, the immaturity becomes apparent. To add to the difficulties, when an emotionally immature parent tries to raise children, then the problem becomes even more obvious. When you have an emotional 9-year-old trying to raise another 9-year-old, the results are often disastrous. Emotional injuries must be healed to allow for maturity in this area. Without the healing, there will always be immaturity. Not having to take responsibility for one's own actions. We have raised a generation that makes a fatal mistake when it comes to child rearing. We allow our children to get away with things. We defend them for doing wrong. We ignore their tantrums. We allow them to indulge in their appetites, and we brush it all off with a muttered comment, "Kids will be kids." There is no doubt that kids will be kids, but to allow children to indulge in such behavior ultimately means that they never have to grow up emotionally. The only difference between maturity and immaturity is the ability to accept responsibility for one's responsibilities. But the way the majority of our youth is raised, they have no inclination, desire, or understanding to do so. We start young. A 2-year-old will dump all the toys out onto the floor, and who ends up picking it up? Most often, the parent does. The child never learns that there are consequences to his actions. We are saying to that 2-year-old, "Don't worry, if you make a mess, Mommy will clean it up." That idea sticks with them until they are taught differently. From there, it just gets worse. We thrust these emotionally immature children into adulthood where suddenly they must accept responsibility for their actions in ways they never had to as children. They have no capacity to do so. They end up in disastrous relationships, getting hurt, hurting others, end up in jail, ruin their credit, get into extreme debt, become abusers in their own rights, or end up prematurely dead. The so-called sowing wild oats leads to lifelong injuries and scars that they end up paying for the rest of their lives. It is a tragedy. If you are a parent with children living at home, please teach your children to take responsibility for their responsibilities. Give them responsibilities. Don't allow them to go into adulthood emotionally immature. More often than not, they will have to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives. Downfalls of teens who mature too early? Teens who mature physically, mentally, and emotionally ahead of schedule often encounter problems that aren't age-appropriate. The problems are often associated with premature hormonal changes, advanced academic skills, superior problem-solving abilities, and high levels of responsibility. Teenagers mature at different rates, so parents should encourage appropriate behavior without expecting their teen to grow up too fast. Downfalls of teens that mature too quickly can have serious consequences. Behavioral concerns. Teenagers who experienced puberty at a young age have bodies that developed more rapidly than their mental and emotional capabilities. Early puberty increases girls' odds of depression, drinking, drug use, eating disorders, behavioral problems, and attempted suicide. The early onset of puberty doesn't mean teen boys or teen girls are ready to handle the responsibility that comes with biological maturity. Unreasonable expectations. Mature teens are often expected to act like adults, yet they don't have the same skills or privileges as adults. As a result, some rebel and experiment with adult behaviors by skipping school, smoking, drinking, using drugs, and engaging in sexual activity. Parents should keep their teen accountable for age-appropriate decisions without expecting her to act like a miniature adult. Even if your teen has good decision-making and problem-solving skills, she shouldn't be expected to be the primary caregiver for a sibling, take on excessive household responsibilities, or be an emotional crutch for adult family members. Peer relationships. Teens who mature too early often have trouble fitting in with their peers. Some have superior academic skills that allow them to skip a grade, and others simply prefer to develop friendships with adults. Mature teens often have trouble relating to immature teens their age because their peers make irrational decisions and get caught up in juvenile fantasies. Annette Sheely, counselor and education consultant, suggests that mature and gifted teens get involved in orchestra, band, or drama where they can meet other teens who might also have higher maturity levels. Mature teens need friends they can relate to so they don't feel obligated to play the role of big brother or big sister. Mistaken for adults. Mature teens often get pulled into adult circumstances by mistake. They might get offered alcohol at restaurants, be the subject of adult-initiated sexual advances, receive credit card solicitations, have trouble fitting into teen or junior-size clothing, and be expected to bypass adolescence. Parents might unintentionally cater to less mature children and expect their mature teen to fend for himself when it comes to cooking, buying groceries, applying for college, getting a job, keeping up with his personal finances, maintaining a car, or making tough decisions. Childhood to adulthood brain wiring. The key to understanding the link between early childhood experience and subsequent behavior is in the age-old nature versus nurture relationship. There is a complex interplay here that is at the core of a human emotional development and behavior. Our genes are not a static blueprint. They can actually alter with experience in the sense that they can be switched on or switched off. Nature and nurture operate together to fashion our brains. This process occurs throughout our lifetime, but it occurs at a much faster and more intense rate in childhood. From the first few days of conception, our brains begin to form rudimentary cell tissue. As the fetus develops in the brain, layer upon layer of nerve cells, or neurons, migrate to their ultimate anatomical positions. They send out their axons to meet each other and become connected, enabling communication with each other. The organization of our brain in this way is primarily genetically determined. In later fetal life, and particularly from the moment of birth, experiences interact with our genes to switch on our connections. Thousands of new connections occur as we develop synapses in response to the environment we find ourselves in. When a child is nurtured, played with, sung to, cuddled, and stimulated positively, he or she will be programmed in a positive fashion. This type of experience sets a child up for life. Each sensory experience modifies and sculpts the thousands of surrounding neurons, and in this way, our brain becomes wired. This process occurs regardless of the postnatal environment, but the subsequent pruning and refining of the pathways is environmentally determined. All drugs, including alcohol, that the mother ingests will be received by the fetus. Many of these, including alcohol, can have direct, harmful effects on the brain. In addition, there may be less obvious but equally important effects on brain connection formation that will cause the behavioral issues such as attention deficit and hyperactivity. Touch is the first sensory modality to come online and has been labeled the mother of all senses. Smell, taste, balance, hearing, and vision follow in that sequence, and it appears that each sense needs to follow the sequential pattern for complete development. The type, the frequency, the intensity, the quality, The order and the number of experiences will all have an impact. The neurons talk to each other via these connections, and our brain becomes wired as axons and dendrites, or spider-like projections, reach out in all directions within the brain. They send their message electrically with the help of brain chemicals. Larger distances are covered by the formation of long projections called axons, which can form nerves. Most nerves are eventually coated with myelin, or white matter, which enables very rapid transmission of information. Myelin is particularly vulnerable to certain toxic insults in development, especially excess cortisol. In most areas of the brain, this process of connectivity, or synapse formation and subsequent myelination, occurs over the first 2 to 3 years. Nature and nurture operate together to fashion our brains. After this time, there is a process of pruning where only the pathways that are being used frequently are retained and the brain becomes a more efficient and less complicated structure in terms of its neural pathways. Those connections that are not frequently being used are lost. The more mature brain is less sensitive to experience and less likely to change. It becomes harder for new patterns to develop. We are hardwired according to the quality and amount of experience we have in those formative early years. There are critical and sensitive periods in brain development during which rapid changes take place, and after which it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to recapture those developments. Learning a musical instrument is a good example of this. Attachment to a consistent caregiver is another. The connections that occur with an attachment relationship need to be made within the first 18 months before the window of opportunity is lost. With failure of this to occur, there are likely to be problems in many areas in later life as the child grows up unable to establish firm, trusting relationships with other humans. Lack of early attachment has been shown to correlate with poor social competency, lower teacher ratings of educational competence, and other outcomes in teenage years. Thousands of new connections occur as we develop synapses in response to the environment we find ourselves in. The experiences essential for activating neurons and promoting synapses formation need to be the right ones. When a child is nurtured, played with, sung to, cuddled, and stimulated positively, he or she will be programmed in a positive fashion. This type of experience sets a child up for life. If they are negative, then the hard wiring that takes place retains all the negative connotations, including the emotional memory of the experience. This includes a triggering of the psychological and somatic sensations that accompany a negative experience, such as a smack or witnessing family violence. Therefore, if a child is repeatedly smacked, put down, ignored, or abused, they may become hardwired for these emotions, and after 2 or 3 years, it becomes more difficult to change. Lack of stimulation or neglect, i.e., lack of positive input, can be equally devastating. The connections will be weak or may never develop. When negative interactions occur in infancy, the physiological associations that accompany the experience include the release of hormones including adrenaline and cortisol. This has been described as a fight or flight reaction. Unfortunately, cortisol, although a crucial hormone in normal amounts, when secreted at inappropriate times and at much higher levels, can interfere with the developing brain, and there may even be structural changes occurring that are irreversible, along with loss of myelin. The brains of chronically deprived and abused children have been shown to be smaller than normal. We are hardwired according to the quality and amount of experience we have in those formative early years. The evidence for the link between early childhood experience and subsequent brain development comes from a number of sources and is still accumulating. Neuroimaging techniques, animal studies, autopsy findings, and blood analysis of hormones can all support the hypothesis. Up until now, the focus has been on the brain changes occurring in the first few years. Brain development continues at different rates in different areas throughout life. Functional and structural MRI scans are showing us just what the extent of this brain development is, particularly in late childhood and adolescence. It seems that there is a burst of neural activity with increased connectivity and subsequent pruning of lesser-used connections similar to that which occurs in the first 3 years in the prefrontal cortex, corpus callosum, and in other parts of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that controls executive functioning or reasoning and judgment. Prior to 15 or 16 years of age, we tend to make decisions based on our emotional gut reaction rather than our rational thinking. This is based in the amygdala, where emotional values are processed. Functional MRI scans show that teenagers use this part of the brain when making decisions. From the early teen years, there is a transfer of decision-making to the prefrontal cortex, where decisions are more rational and objective, and consequences are thought through. The prefrontal cortex denotes social behavior and knowledge and allows us to control impulsive behavior. At the same time, the corpus callosum, the bundle of fibers connecting the two sides of the brain, changes and grows. This allows problem-solving and creativity to develop and assist us in planning. Brain development continues at different rates in different areas throughout life. Therefore, throughout adolescence, we slowly become more reasoned, and our decision-making reflects the fact that we are using this important part of our brain in everyday life. Impulse control, planning, and an understanding of the rules of conduct become incorporated into our thinking. There is a sex differential operating, with boys lagging 2 or 3 years behind girls in this developmental process. The implications of this are huge. Teenagers are not the same as adults in their ability to think rationally or make sound judgments. The teen brain and the adult brain are therefore both anatomically and physiologically different. The forces that shape this adolescent brain development are unclear. Obviously, this is biologically driven as part of puberty, but just how important environmental factors such as nutrition, parenting, education, physical activity, peers, drugs, infections, and many other factors are not yet known. It is likely that at least until our mid-20s, these neurobiological changes which are occurring create potential for change and in some cases repair. More research will hopefully show just how we might both enhance cortical development and promote such repair. Tips to be more mature. Maturity and responsibility are not measured by age. They are built by experience. It is not when we start speaking big things, but rather when we start understanding small things. You may not be able to control the situation, but you can always control your attitude and how you deal with it. That's when maturity and being responsible occur. Being mature and responsible may be tough, but with a little effort and motivation, you will see how much better you'll feel about yourself in no time. Remember that if you want to be mature and wise, you must first have to be young and stupid. Life does not prepare you for the responsibility that comes along with being an adult. Well, who would be ready to plunge into adulthood stage, where you have to pay your own bills, fire up another workday, or drink some coffee and pretend that you know what you're doing? You might feel that fear while entering adulthood, but that is normal. The pressure is indeed real, yet you must learn how to face it because that is part of life. Tips on how to be more mature and responsible. 1. Set your goals. If you want to be more mature and responsible, you have to make it a clear and realistic goal. Rather than seeking satisfaction in fantasy, strive and compete for your objectives. Invest your energy in setting your goals and activities that extend beyond one's self-interest. 2. Be persistent. Aside from setting your goals, one thing you need to do to achieve maturity is to have perseverance. Achieving your goals in life or getting results from what you've worked hard for takes time and process. Just keep on trying and be a persevering person. Never give up halfway and always remember your goal. 3. Listen more and talk less. Most of the people tend to treat conversation like a competitive sport, but actually, this approach is definitely opposite to the one you should take. Do you know that the person who talks less benefits the most, and the person who talks most benefits least? Listening is also a sign of maturity, because when you listen, you understand things. Be a giver rather than a talker. 4. Have self-control. If you want to have more maturity and responsibility, learn how to control yourself. Manage your thoughts, emotions, and temper. Be careful to evaluate and analyze your actions and behavior. It may be a great challenge, but if you learn from it, you can master anything. Thus, never let your emotions overpower your intelligence. 5. Respect other people's opinion. People have different perceptions in life. Hence, respecting others' belief, point of view, or way of life without any judgment is a sign of maturity to understand things in life. Even if you don't agree with someone's opinion, learn to respect it and make it a point to never argue about it. 6. Develop acceptance. Let go of everything that's bothering you or of all the negative thoughts you have in mind doesn't mean giving up, but accepting that there are things that cannot be. Just accept the unchangeable and remove yourself from the unacceptable. So if you want to be more mature and responsible, recognize the things you cannot have and be contented with what you have. 7. Be optimistic. If you view life on a positive side, it will help you get stronger in whatever circumstances you're facing right now. Maturity and optimistic come on the same line. If you continue to entertain those negative vibes, immaturity will come along. Be responsible and mature enough to think that everything has a purpose. Never let yourself be caged by your own nemesis. It is always healthier to have positive thoughts rather than the opposite of it. 8. Be open-minded. There may be things that aren't always what you want them to be. Just stay open-minded and look at the bigger picture. An open-minded person is one who admits being wrong, one who thinks and opens his mind before opening his mouth. 9. Build self-confidence. Never underestimate your strength. Accept and love yourself, not needing someone else to complete you. Help yourself without expecting other people to do it for you. The best way to gain your self-confidence is by doing what you are afraid of. 10. Be contented. Stop complaining. Instead of complaining what you don't have, be contented and just learn how to be thankful for everything that you have. A wise man knows how to be contented because he knows happiness comes from contentment. How to become emotionally mature. Be present. You can't choose better responses to your key moments if you're asleep at the wheel. You have to wake up and become fully conscious and present to what is happening both within and around you. If not alert and aware, you'll quickly slip into old, habitual, negative ways of reacting. Being present does not make responding easy, but it does put you in the driver's seat. It makes it possible. So thinking about your key moment, what was the trigger event? What specifically about the event triggered your reaction? What were your thoughts, feelings? What did you do? What were the consequences? By being present, you begin to take your power back. In fact, do you realize that this moment is all you have? When can you be happy or miserable? When can you be confident? When can you make choices? It all happens in this moment, not the past or future. Being present to this moment is the gateway to change and emotional maturity. Embrace reality. Reality is what is, or the way things are. It exists independently of your opinions about it. Embrace it and find peace. Resist it and experience pain and frustration. Some of your realities you choose, career, who you married, and others were thrust upon you by your heritage, your stature, age, or other factors outside your control. Nevertheless, they form the boundaries or parameters within which you live and make choices daily. This is not to say that you can't change some realities. Some you can, some you can't. But at this moment, which is the only moment that is real, what is, is. To be happy and effective, you must acknowledge and respect rather than fight against the realities of your life. Denying, avoiding, complaining, or refusing to think about uncomfortable realities gives those very things incredible power over your life. If you are worried about your finances, sit down and take stock of exactly where you are. How much you owe, for example, and exactly how you will pay it off. Fun? No. Wildly uncomfortable? Words can't express it. But by taking ownership of the reality, you've now equipped yourself to change it. Exercise responsibility. Responsibility has to do with the choices you make about how to think, feel, and act about reality. The quality of your life depends on your ability to make good choices. Choices consistent with your best self and long-term best interest, in spite of what happens to you. Your personal experience and the results you get in life are influenced, not determined, by circumstances, events, and other people. Between an event and your response is a moment, however fleeting, when you decide whether to surrender control and react automatically, or to interrupt a negative pattern and search out responses more in alignment with your long-term self-interest. So again, think about your key moment. What choices did you make? What were the consequences? What other choices might you have made? How would they have led to a different outcome? Clarify your vision. What do you really want? What is most important to you? Being clear about your vision gives you the motivation or incentive to make good choices when in a key moment. It is easy to follow the path of least resistance or act out negative emotions. But if you've thought about what you want, if you have a clear vision of the outcomes you desire for yourself and others, then it becomes easier to delay immediate gratification and exercise the discipline to make a positive and strengthening choice. A clear vision allows you to be ruled by something other than impulse and circumstance. Define what you want. Deepen it so that it becomes more important than what you are currently getting. Act from integrity. This is where the rubber meets the road. No excuses, no whining. Acting from integrity is bringing what you say and do into alignment with what you really want. It is acting consistently with your higher vision. It is living by commitment rather than ease, discipline rather than convenience. Acting from integrity requires that you give up short-term payoffs, immediate gratification, escape, avoidance, self-indulgence, revenge, etc., for something that is bigger or more fulfilling in the long run. It requires that you pay a price. Delay of gratification, quieting your tongue, facing a problem, entering into a different conversation, etc. The price you pay is like your admission into the world of emotional maturity. You've earned it. So consider your key moment. What new actions are you willing to take? Things won't magically change. You change them by making new choices and behaving in a new way. Traits of an emotionally mature person. Age and time have little to do with maturity. There are plenty of mature young people, and just as many from older generations who are childish. Maturity is about the way you act and interact with the world around you. 1. Self-awareness. Maturity grows from a seed of awareness, an awareness of the self and the actions you take. Being self-aware means you're able to look at yourself through the eyes of an observer. You can take a somewhat neutral stance to watch your thoughts, actions, and emotions before applying a rational filter to them. Essentially, self-awareness is about building up an understanding of your personality, its strengths and weaknesses, its potential and limitations, and every little nuance. 2. Self-control. Once you have established a robust awareness of yourself, you are better positioned to exert a degree of self-control. You can identify urges that build up within your mind and resist the temptation to act on them. This might, for example, be the difference between getting angry and remaining calm when someone does something you dislike. A mature person is better placed to show restraint towards things that might be detrimental to their short or long-term well-being. They can triumph over some of the more self-destructive behaviors by recognizing them for what they are. 3. Accountability. When you reach a certain level of maturity, you grasp what a great responsibility it is to be human. You accept that we are all accountable for our own choices and the wider impact they may have on the world. The belief that things happen to you is eroded and replaced with a proactive mindset that understands the consequences of your actions. No longer will you live passively among the world. You take strides to change your situation where necessary so that you can live conscientiously. 4. Humility. Even though you appreciate the importance of each decision you take, you remain a humble and modest person. You never take yourself to be above others, regardless of your status, wealth, power, or influence. You know that, when it comes down to it, we are all born equal and we all die equal. You refrain from letting any personal success go to your head, and you treat people fairly and respectfully, whatever capacity it may be in. 5. Self-acceptance. Mature people are able to accept themselves for who they are. They practice kindness even in the face of their shortcomings. You can seek to improve yourself and grow as an individual, but maturity allows you to take your present situation and all the past events that have led to it and make peace with them. It is only when you are able to accept where you are now that you can plan your path for the future. 6. Gratitude. Alongside acceptance of yourself comes a sense of gratitude for all of the wonderful things that exist in your life. You develop the ability to see the immense benefits of the value of both big and the small. You are thankful for the people with whom you spend your time, the basic needs that are met daily, the experiences you enjoy, and the gift of life itself. You never take things for granted because you appreciate that not everyone is so fortunate. 7. Compassion. A side effect of being grateful is that you feel more empathy and concern for others. A mature soul can't help but wish well upon those around them and try to help in any way they can. They are more attuned to the interconnectedness of everything and so feel the pain of others as if it were their own. This drives them towards charity of all kinds as they seek to spread love and positivity throughout society. They are wholehearted givers who rarely seek reward or recognition for the kindness they show. 8. Being other-centered. Compassion is just one part of a more general approach to life that emotionally mature people adopt. Rather than the separation that comes from putting your own interests first, you are determined to do whatever you can to promote unity and oneness. You celebrate the success of others and embrace movements that seek to improve the welfare of everyone and not just the privileged few. This is opposed to the jealousy, envy, and self-promotion that often flow through immature individuals. 9. Open-mindedness. Maturity breaks down the mental barriers and unlocks a sense of liberalism in an individual. No longer do you see things as black and white or right and wrong. Your mind is open to many ideas and opinions, and you do not judge those who might think differently or choose to live in ways that aren't familiar to you. You also allow your beliefs to soften so as to accept the possibility that you may be mistaken at times. You don't hold facts in such high regards, but realize instead that there are a great number of unknowns in the world. 10. Flexibility. One of the ways in which you stay so positive is by remaining as flexible as possible to the circumstances you face. You are not stubborn, your views are open to change, and you accept unpredictability as part and a parcel of life. You can think on your feet and adapt to things as and when they happen. The opposite of this is to dig your heels in and refuse to change even when things change around you. This is how an immature person lives. Why our priorities change as we get older. When we were babies, our main priority was to just eat and sleep. We basically don't do anything other than feed and doze off. When we became kids, our priority was to always play and have our parents buy us the newest toy in the market. What's important for us is to have friends to share our toys and play with. We try to collect all kinds of our favorite toys, like different Barbie dolls for girls and toy cars for boys. When we reach our adolescent age, our priority is to fit in with our peers and the society. Teen girls try to be skinny and attractive for the opposite sex, while teen boys try to buff up and look mature. As we start into college, our priorities change into getting good grades and graduate so that our transcript of records would be competitive when we start looking for a job. As we became young professionals, our priority was to be a part of an established company where we can grow both personally and professionally. Those with the financial resources may start building their own business and put all their time, effort, and knowledge to make it grow and prosper. When we reach our late 20s and onwards, settling down may be one of our priorities. We try to socialize and meet as many people as possible to meet that one individual we'll fall in love and spend the rest of our life with. Some people who get married make getting pregnant their main priority. They want to conceive to start a family where they can share and extend the overflowing love they have. At this point in life, some women make being a homemaker their utmost priority. They stop working and just be a plain housewife who tends to all the needs of her husband and children. She makes sure that their home is always clean and in order. She drives the kids to and from school and teaches or helps them with their lessons. She also makes sure that dinner is ready when their husband gets home at night after a long day's work. What is important is for her family to be taken care of and live comfortably. Still, some women, and mostly husbands, prioritize in improving professionally and reach the highest possible position they can to ensure their financial security. When people reach middle age and older, one of the most important priorities for them is to stay healthy and prolong their life. At this age, most people are more prone to illness in connection to getting old. They try and drink different vitamins and food supplements that can contribute to their overall well-being and health. As they reach their retirement age and are no longer working, Their priorities change to just enjoying themselves and maybe do some of the things they didn't have time doing when they were still in the hustle and bustle life of a career person. This may include traveling or doing some light sports like golf. They also just want to enjoy the company of their grown-up children and grandchildren and play the devoted grandparents. It is true that our priorities change as we get older, simply because our needs change as we pass to the different stages of life. We undergo different steps, development, and transformation that make us require and necessitate various things. The role of maturity in love. For many of us, when we hear the word love, we associate it with romance. This was known to the Greeks as eros, the passionate, sensual form of love that we feel towards an intimate partner. It's something many of us search for, sometimes to the point of neurosis. Karen Horney, an influential psychoanalyst, said that when we are so desperate for affection, we exhibit a neurotic trend of moving towards people. Not receiving enough love and attention from those we've trusted in our childhood and young adult years, we seek the affection and approval of others, taking it to an extreme. Horney said there was also a neurotic trend to move away from people, where we find it easier to do away with love altogether. Moving away from others, we regard love as a source of stress and anxiety. We seek to be self-sufficient and autonomous to replace the need for the people and push them out of our lives entirely. We strive for perfection, fearing even the slightest of flaws in ourselves and especially our partners. It leads us to indecision, only accepting the most ideal option or nothing at all. Our standards for an acceptable partner become a buffer to keep others at a distance. We may even restrict our life practices to within narrow borders, trying to live as inconspicuously as possible. To bring attention to ourselves would mean to interact with others. Whether we drive ourselves to desperation, buying the affection and attention of others, or rationalizing away our need for love, we find love to be at the foundation of several aspects across the span of our lives. The love and affection of our parents influence our development as children. Their touch and warmth provide us with a feeling of safety, a trust that translates over to other people that become important to us when we grow up. According to Abraham Maslow, love is the first thing we seek after ensuring our own security and biological needs, giving us a sense of belonging and worth to others. To the famous psychoanalyst Erik Erikson, it was given stage in our lives where our main goal was to achieve intimacy. If we failed, we fell into isolation. We have established love as a necessity in our society. The trick, however, is obtaining it in a healthy way. Healthy love requires equal parts temperance and vulnerability. It requires maturity, but this is where my understanding of love becomes shaky. If we assert that romance is an immature form of love, a false reality that we create for ourselves where passion replaces logic, then how are we able to love maturely without loss of enthusiasm? What is it that we as human beings want from love, and how can we obtain it in a healthy way? How can we allow for passion and romance without the irrationality and neurosis? Is maturity the absence of the need for love? Sometimes I imagine healthy love to be the kind of love that older couples share. They aren't prone to spells of puppy love. They love and appreciate each other lucidly, which may be mistaken for lack of passion. We try to fix love, to make it healthier by applying our logic and wisdom, which lead us to believe that we should avoid what harms us. When we are hurt by our relationship, betrayed by another, we point to love as the source of our pain. We restrict the jurisdiction it has over our lives, or do away with it altogether. When we weaken its influence in our lives, we believe it no longer has the power to hurt us. We regulate our love and affection, choosing when and to whom we give it out to. But such an evanescent thing as love is a hard thing to rein in and utilize. In fact, it seems hard to fathom that it was ever meant to be utilized rather than influence us subconsciously. Moderation, or rather over-moderation, of love will not bring about fulfillment. It only provides us with a moratorium, makes us complacent for as long as we keep love at arm's distance. We over-moderate it in order to avoid pain and heartbreak, but it is that source of pain from which we learn valuable lessons. Erikson said that conflict plays a role in our lives by tempering our resolve. It teaches us to take initiative and find solutions to our own problems rather than despair or look to sources outside ourselves for quick answers. It is how we become more resilient, more able to achieve fullness and satisfaction in our lives. It is why we must go against our logic and lower our defenses concerning love. I don't mean that we should charge in with reckless abandon, just allow ourselves to be vulnerable to others. To love someone is to put our trust in their hands, to take a risk that they won't break that trust, to give up some control over what happens to us. To live without love is to live without trust, and when we go about living, trusting no one, we live in a state of fear. Another aspect to maturity in love concerns our own maturity. As we develop socially, we begin to develop our own identity. We replace the values we inherited from our parents and peers with our own. Many of us try to rush the process, try to be adults before we are truly able to take on the responsibilities. Rather, what we want are the privileges of an adult and the prestige that comes with it. We mistake this for adulthood and create an idealized image of our own maturity. With this false sense of adulthood, we come to believe that we truly know what love is and start to desire intimacy. We look for a partner that will be there for us, that will complete us, to function with us as a couple, a single unit. Erickson calls this pseudo-intimacy, which is an attempt at intimacy before one knows who they truly are. One does not lose his or her identity when entering into a relationship, but this is what happens when we look to others to complete us. It implies that we were incomplete before them. In order to have a mature relationship, we need to enter relationships as complete individuals, with the relationship serving as a way for us to grow further, to continue growth outside our own selves. Maturity is not the absence of the need for love, but an absence of idealization of our partners. They do not complete us, they empower us. Signs of maturity that love requires. The need for control is venomous to love. An immature person in a relationship has an overwhelming need to control the other person. They think their partner is somehow theirs, and they watch over them as if they were watching a bicycle they had left in the street. This need for control is very strongly connected to time. Since one person in the relationship is trying to occupy all of the free time the other person has. This is just one more form of control. A mature person knows that that control is a totally unproductive fountain of anxiety. If the other person has to end up leaving, they will do it all the same, and if they have to stay, it will be clear that this is out of love and not for fear of crossing the barrier that the other person is watching over. Concerning time, a mature person needs their own space, and understands that the other person does as well. In addition to understanding this and needing their own, they are convinced that their existence somehow enriches the relationship. Communication is the air that love breathes. An immature person still has not understood how important communication is in their relationship. So much so that they pay no attention to this and put their ideas into words just as they appear in their own head. The opposite can also happen, and instead of speaking without any kind of filter, they put up such a filter that nothing comes out. A mature person, on the other hand, understands that communication requires patience and a great deal of intelligence. They know, for example, that a proposal is much better than a critique, or that negative statements are much less likely to cause a conflict if they are accompanied by an array of alternatives. Forgiveness, revenge, and resentment. Immature people forgive, but they don't forget. They have a list of offenses ready at all times in case there is an argument and they need to show their claws. On the other hand, this list of aggressions tends to be endless because they are very sensitive to the behavior of the other person, such that any little run-in causes them great emotional pain. A person who has achieved maturity resolves conflicts. They understand that wounds need time to heal, but that this time won't do anything if they do not dedicate part of it to resolving the conflict. They avoid making a list of offenses because they know that the only consequence of this is pain and destruction, both for themselves and for their partner. Time and affection cannot be missing in love. Immature people give gifts in order to receive them. However, a detail rarely seems good enough for them, nor does it reach their expectations. In addition, they need constant attention from the other person, and deep within them, they are holding on to the hope that the other person is capable of reading their mind, which is not humanly possible. They prefer a material gesture to a hug because they measure the value of economic cost that they attribute to them. A hug is worth very little to them. Mature people give gifts to see the other person's face. For them, the best moment is when they give what they have made or bought to the other person and see this person's face. Furthermore, they show immense happiness toward any gesture the other makes towards them. because they focus on what exists and not what may be missing. Finally, what they value the most are gestures of affection because, through these, they enjoy love like little kids. In love, intimacy is more than just desire. An immature person only feels attraction to the physical aspect of the other person. They understand that sex is where everything starts and everything ends. As such, if their partner does not click with them in this sense, they think there is a serious crisis, at least much more so than if their partner went on a whole week without talking to them for more than a few minutes at a time. Mature people understand that desire is just another part of their relationship and that it communicates with the rest of these aspects. This means that every fact of a relationship complements all of the others, and they can even improve all of the others. For them, everything starts and ends rather with intimacy, where sex resides, but also trust or vulnerability, understood in a positive sense. Finally, for immature people, the goal with their partner is not to suffer, to feel good. For mature people, the goal with their partner is to grow and enjoy. They want to keep taking risks for the common good that they are undertaking together, as we have already said. Reasons some people refuse to grow up into mature adults. 1. They are afraid of autonomy and aloneness. Making decisions for oneself can be incredibly daunting, and a lot of people balk at that kind of responsibility for themselves by refusing to sever the parent-child bonds they're comfortable with. Many people want security, comfort, and the reassurance that they're making the right choices and doing things well. Validation that generally comes from a parent or mentor. If people don't take steps towards personal autonomy, they might never have confidence in their ability to live life on their own terms. 2. Growing up equals no more fun. Some people look at children and envy their carefree attitudes and behavior. Kids often live utterly in the moment and aren't weighed down by all the concerns that come with adulthood. When they're dancing around on the grass or spending hours drawing pictures, they're not fretting about their mortgage or tax returns or thinking about their cholesterol levels. They're just having fun, and that is an incredibly appealing thing for people to grasp at. Many assume that once they grow up, they can't immerse themselves in joyous abandonment like that, but are instead bogged down by the never-ending onslaught of adult responsibility. Or even worse, they might only be allowed to have that kind of so-called fun that adults are supposed to have. Like playing golf on weekends or having board game parties with neighbors where everyone complains about their sciatica. A person can have unbridled joy at any age and can delve into whatever pursuits make their souls shine. They just have to balance that with life responsibilities, and that balance is what many of them balk at. 3. Few positive examples of happy adulthood. In TV shows and movies, most adults are seen as either haggard shells of their former selves or laughingstocks, whilst young people are vibrant and having the time of their lives. People may have experienced trauma watching their parents and or grandparents deteriorate from disease, or seen supposedly stable marriages fall apart, and are paranoid of experiencing the same thing. If they can avoid the trappings of those who grew up before them, then they can avoid the hurt and disappointment that they've witnessed firsthand. 4. Vanity. How many people do you know who are obsessed with maintaining their youthful appearance? It's a constant in pretty much every culture on the planet, and one that the beauty industry capitalizes on rather fiercely. People are constantly inundated with the message that youth and beauty are their only real attributes, and that aging is something to be fought against, lest they succumb to the wrinkles, sagging, and all other things that go along with the natural aging process. The elderly are vilified rather than revered, and in a culture where one's sexual attractiveness is considered the be-all and end-all of their existence, to grow old means that they won't be desired anymore. They'll be utterly irrelevant. Shallow people who wholly identify their sense of self-worth with their physical appearance can go absolutely ballistic when they start to realize that their temporary physical shells are starting to show a bit of wear and tear, and many will go to extreme measures in order to cling to that youthfulness. 5. Unresolved childhood trauma. In a case such as this, it's less of a refusal to grow up and more of an inability to do so. For some people who experienced serious childhood trauma, they're far more comfortable living in a fantasy world of possibilities as a form of escapism than they are in living in reality, especially when it comes to dealing with trying circumstances or hard decisions. When faced with a difficult situation, they'll dissociate and retreat into a safe, comfortable fantasy realm rather than actually dealing with things. And attempts to force them into action will just cause them to retreat further. If these behaviors aren't addressed when the person is still very young, they'll carry through into adulthood and hinder them permanently, keeping them from making any decisions or taking any steps toward a life that they want. Instead, they're more at ease wallowing in situations they despise, because at least there is security in the known. If they have to contend with severe anxiety and/or depression, those will exacerbate the feeling of vulnerability, so they find themselves replaying situations in which they're childlike and helpless, being cared for by others. This could be immediate family members or partners whom they force into caregiving roles. Either way, they avoid having to grow up. 6. They're trapped in the glory days of their youth. This is common for people who had a brief bout of fame or success in their teens or early 20s and have decided to cling to that temporary shimmer forever. The person could be a 60-year-old man who still dresses and behaves as he did when he was 22 and had a breakthrough hit with his rock band. Or a woman in her 40s who won't stop talking about how amazing life was when she was a teenage model and had a torrid affair with a well-known celebrity. These people are stuck in time, like ghosts who are trapped at the instant of their death, and will keep reliving that moment over and over. Those moments in which they felt special and adored were cornerstones of their development, and they just keep clinging to them, unable to move on. 7. Personality disorders. Certain personality disorders, such as cluster B types like borderline personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder, can keep a person from properly maturing into adulthood. Their behavior is so overdramatic, over-emotional, unpredictable, and self-sabotaging that they'll either find themselves in circumstances that cause them distress, thus forcing them to retreat, or they will instigate those very situations so they have an excuse to retreat into stagnant sameness. In their quest to avoid any kind of pain, discomfort, or abandonment, they choose to remain in places and situations that they can control, in which they feel safe. For many, this means mom and dad's house, or the apartment they've lived in since they were 18, eating the same foods because they provide comfort, wearing the same style clothing because that keeps things constant, etc. There's one very common reason why so many people refuse to grow up, and more often than not, it's this undercurrent that fuels all the aforementioned reasons as well. 8. Death absolutely terrifies them. To grow up means that they're adults. Once they are adults, they have to acknowledge that they're aging. Aging means growing old. Growing old means that they're going to die. Although death is a part of the natural life cycle for everything, death-denying Western culture cherishes youth and beauty and vilifies old age. Death is something to be battled against, denied, ignored, and not dealt with at all. People go out of their way to avoid even thinking about death, let alone talking about it, and the sudden awareness that they, too, are going to die one day and can be devastating, even paralyzing to a person. And so they distract themselves with trivialities, whether that's cultivating a comic book collection, delving into celebrity gossip, or obsessing over the latest health and diet craze. Anything to keep their minds from dealing with the reality that all of this will end one day. Rather than accept this with a measure of grace, they play pretend that they're young and carefree, forever running away from the reality of their eventual end, instead of embracing and celebrating the time that they have.